Welcome to the 18th century. Today we make a spectacular Chesapeake crab cakes. We're making a goose that is stuffed with beautiful herbs and the ragout de goose. And we're going to do potato dumplings, a little tribute to the German influx in this region. Come join me for a taste of history. Did you know that in the 18th century, spiders were a very important part of cooking? And I don't mean the spiders crawl around in your yard. I mean the spider pot, which is a three-legged pot that is used to cook on open hearth. And cooking in the 18th century was hard work. On A Taste of History, I will keep true to those early American ways, using spider pots, resting in open flames, as I create everything from sauces to side dishes to main courses. There were no microwave ovens or frozen dinners. Meal preparation revolved around the hearth and keeping the fire going. Did you know moving pots in and out of the fire was my only way of temperature control? It takes a strong back to do this type of cooking, but I come from a sturdy Hessian heritage, so I can take it. Growing up in the Black Forest of Germany, my grandfather taught me how to make amazing meals in front of an open hearth fire. When I came to the United States, I took those secrets with me to Philadelphia, the city tavern. So it's no surprise to me that Philadelphia, which was the second largest English-speaking city in the world, had so much sophistication when it came to food. This is the original spot where Jefferson, Washington, and Adams would come after a hard day of debates to enjoy a hearty meal and a strong ale. Huzzah! For over a quarter century, I've kept this tradition alive. So step back with me to 18th century America and savor the great flavors and a taste of history. To start off today's recipe, I'm first going to concentrate on dressing the goose, which is kind of very, very important because the flavor it's going to get. So basically, you stick the wings underneath the goose as so. Take out whatever you find in the cavity, which mostly be gizzards that you can use for gravy. It's really no right or wrong. The goose has a lot of fat. Fat and its cavity has a lot of fat under the skin. That's why you got to be very careful when cooking a goose. You don't want to keep your kitchen on fire. You want to make sure you have a deep enough dish, and you want to make sure that you take the grease out as you go along. Anyway, this way a second. I'll have my goose ready. I have some Granny Smith. I have a nice onion here. The onion I'm just going to cut. I don't even peel the onion for that. This is what we call, in our terms, an aromat. Aromat meaning it has flavor. When the goose is cooking very slowly, this flavor comes right within. So I have the apple, celery root, and actually what I like is the root part of it. It has even more flavor in it. Stick it right in there. Parsley, sage is good. Thyme some people like. So what I'm doing right now, I'm going to show you something that most likely did not happen necessarily in the 18th century, but I want to show you some modern technique to assure you that your recipe will turn out as good as mine. So here I go, I take a string. I'll put the goose in front of me. I'll take the leg. I'll take the string. I'll tie it across. I tie it across one more time. I'll take it, and this is where the trick comes in. I want to press it right through here, and I'll explain to you why in a second. Then I'll turn it over. I take the skin of the neck, and I tie it up as so. Now the goose is ready to get in a dish and get in the oven. Okay, salt, a bit of white pepper. Today we're cooking this in an 18th century beehive, which takes a lot of technique, by the way, because you have to really control the fire. Remember, I don't have any knobs that dials 425 or 375. So this was maybe the most difficult part of the recipe, because this particular recipe, when it calls to ragout, what ragout really means is something that is pre-cooked and cooked again. Like when you go to a Chinese restaurant and people say it's twice fried, that is twice fried. The goose is cooked first, then it gets trimmed down, and then it gets finished in a beautiful sauce. So why it's done like that? For two reasons. One, to make the goose very tender, and the other thing is to get all the fat out of it. So having the goose in the oven, now we can concentrate on the appetizer for today's menu, which is a crab cake that everybody knows. But people do not know that crab cake stayed way back to the 18th century. But obviously it was done much more cumbersome than we know it today. Maryland shore is right here, and the Delaware was full of crabs, as we already all know by now. You cook them up, you break them loose, like basically you take off the clothes, you take off the meat that's in the inside, and you pick it. Today what I'm making, I'm using a lamb crab meat, onion and peppers. Anytime you're making a dish that you don't eat immediately, you want to always make sure that you sweat them. By sweating meaning saute them. Vegetables are 80% to 88% water. You want to make sure you get the water out of the vegetable and also enhances the flavor. Plus, after a lot of hard work, you don't want to make sure that your crab cakes or anything you make that uses raw vegetables in it will spoil. Then I have a pepper. And you notice I'm using only one kind of pepper. That's again an 18th century uniqueness because they wouldn't have yellow peppers and red peppers as we know it. So it's a blush pepper. It's a pepper that goes out from green to red. Beautiful in flavor. Okay. So I'm going to take a little bit of butter in here, the onions and the peppers. Here are the ones that I already made before, but you obviously know. A couple eggs that I scrambled already. It goes right in there. A little something that everybody knows, which is mayonnaise. An important thing is used as a binder as well. Worcestershire sauce, a little bit of hot sauce, a little bit of salt, very little because the crab meat is salted already. Some white pepper. And what makes our crab cakes unique is not the crab itself, it's really the bread. The bread that we use is a salilan. And the salilan is a brioche, 18th century recipe. We use dead breadcrumbs to put it into the mixture, which obviously enhances the recipe that you can't believe. Take a piece of French bread, let it get a little old, and grind it up. Mix this whole thing up, like so. In the real world, you set it up a while in the refrigerator. You want to make sure that it has a chance to rest so that everything chills together nicely. Lemon juice, I put a little bit in mine, not a lot. I'm basically almost done with the crab cake. That's how you want it. After you spend a lot of money on crab, you don't want to make it all to a mush. You take the crab meat and you form it by hand. Put them now in breadcrumbs. And we put a breadcrumb on the outside. So the breadcrumb is excellent. And actually, if you fry them out, and I know, and I read in recipes at the 18th century, they would fry them out in lard, mind you. So the flavor of lard, which is unbelievable, it's also used for baking a lot, makes it spectacular. Set it up in the refrigerator for, even if it's only an hour, you get it. Now, I'm going to show you what the 18th century chef would have done. He would have taken the shell, you saw me earlier, stuffed it, like so. It's actually eaten like this in many other countries. Like Brazil has a dish like that, they call it caranguejo, which is very popular, just gets done like so. So basically what you do is you empty the shell, you put it back in the shell, and that's how all the recipe books that we have that date back to the 18th century explained to make it. And I'm going to put them right on the fire, so keep an eye on it. I put them right here on my grill. Here we go. As I explain the 18th century, we got to remember who settled first. The Germans came here very strong, 1620, 1640. So this dish most likely would have been brought over by some Germans because the same dish that I'm used to making when I grew up. And it's quite an interesting dish because it combines raw potatoes and bread and onion in a mixture that makes unbelievable potato dumplings. So what you want to do is you will take any kind of potato. This happens to be a red potato, but you can do it with Yukon Golds. You can use Thomas Jefferson's favorite, Irish white. Whatever potato you want to use is fine. There's really, again, no right, no wrong. The trick of it comes, I'll show you this in 2 seconds. You want to grind it. Then you want to take an onion and do the same thing. To make this recipe work, you would have to take a kitchen towel or you can take a cheesecloth and you want to squeeze it. You want to squeeze all the extra liquid that you have from the onion and all the extra liquid that you got from the potato out of the thing, like so. Then you put it back in your bowl. It's a dry mixture. It reminds me a little bit when I work in the West Indies, when people do with cassava root as well. The same concept is used there. So white bread you want to use that maybe you have sitting around for a while. So you take the bread and you want to, for this particular, I'll just show a small recipe. You want to take it, you're going to cut off the crusts like so, And then comes an interesting thing that you got to do. When the bread is really stale, which is actually one of the reasons that I would assume this dumpling became popular, because remember one thing, look at me. You got to have a fire, you got a fire going, you got a beehive going. It takes a lot of work. It takes wood, it takes labor. And you also have to procure the flour. So it wasn't something like we today ignore a piece of bread like there. They wouldn't waste anything. So this would have been guaranteed one of the dishes that would have been utilized instead of throwing something out. Because the 18th century people were frugal, not just because of dollars and cents, but frugal also because of the hardship. You put the milk into the bread normally is for what? You want to reawaken the gluten. The gluten are dormant when you bake something, but the gluten come back alive, and you need a gluten for that. And look at it, how quick it goes. I have it almost ready. Now, I put my bread in here. A little bit of egg in there that I already have pre-scrambled, a little bit of egg. I have parsley that I already chopped. There's two things in this recipe that really make the difference. One is nutmeg, and the other one is marjoram. It's an ancient spice that's still used a lot in Mediterranean cooking, and also is used heavy in 18th century recipes that I found. When you have it like that, look at that, perfect. It's nice and dry. It's not anything that you think would be like very, very difficult to form. You take it in, and then you decide what size you want. Now, if you want to make this larger or smaller, it really make a difference. I like it like, again, almost a golf ball size, maybe like so. One more thing to remember is when you do it, you might want to take the last moment, take your hands in all-purpose flour and roll it. What it does, it gives you an outside firming. It coats the dumpling on the outside. The grated onion and the grated potatoes have to be absolutely squeezed hard and make it dry, otherwise it will not work, it will fall apart on you. Okay, let me check on my crab quick too. I want to make sure nothing happens to those babies. Oh, they're beautiful. Yeah. Before I get started on the turnips, I'm going to put those dumplings in the water so they'll be ready by the time I plate my dinner. Okay. Now we come into the turnips. A turnip is almost indestructible. Voila, like so. We have an onion here that I'm gonna just chop quick. A lot of the recipes in the 18th century rely on onions because the onion would store extremely well. Now they don't have them stored like we have them, they usually hang them up in a braid. While onions need to be kept in a dry place, most other vegetables would need to be kept in a root cellar to extend their life. Just outside of Philadelphia is an 18th century wood cellar at the Harriton House. I have asked the executive director there, Bruce Gill, to help me unearth its secrets. I know there are many, many variations of wood cellars.
Well, this is a very easy root cellar to build because it's into an embankment.
Gotcha.
So by digging out 3 feet, they can throw the dirt out and you have a 6-foot deep hole. It's built into the hill. And directly behind it was the garden. That's the reason for the placement. When we go inside, you'll see that there's a ventilation hole in the roof so that it creates a draft.
Gotcha.
And you need high humidity for the storage of food as well as the cool temperatures.
Gotcha.
Where there wasn't an opportunity to dig a hole underground, a root cellar could be constructed, as was the case here at Harriton House, by digging into the side of a shaded hill. The sod and earth kept the temperature cool inside year-round and the ingredients fresh for whenever the cooks needed them.
I mean, look at how crisp the leaves, even of a cabbage is. You wouldn't find this in a supermarket at this level because the temperature and the humidity, everything's really balanced in here. And this is what is so beautiful. Really is. So it was a great way of preserving and obviously ensuring the quality of meals the 18th century hopefully now will be known for.
Exactly. Exactly.
What I'm doing right now is I'm getting prepared to start the ragu phase of the goose, which means it's whatever you want to put in the goose, you kind of pre-cook, because remember, the goose is already cooked once I take it out of the oven. I have some scallions too, or green onions, whatever you call them, for extra flavor. Cut them, and a quick bias. There we go. So you can use a Dutch oven or a spider. For today, I'm going to use a spider. So I just want to add some butter into that. Or should we be really 18th century? Now you're talking. We're going to use the schmaltz. If you ever had some goose schmaltz, nothing better if you cook a red cabbage or Brussels sprouts, like this, that wine. Let this get warm. My fire is perfectly good here. A lardon is a French expression that comes along with a lot of the French technique that came into this country. Cut it into nice chunks. And to make that, garlic, onion, scallion, navet, with a bay leaf, and back on the fire. I'm going to add some white wine into it later to kind of let those things simmer. Just want to get a little heat on it. Okay. Good amount of white wine. Now, the bacon slab that I just cut, I put it in a little pan, a little bit of white wine into it, and it will take no time at all. All right. Let me get the goose. Now, obviously, a couple times in between, I was very busy making sure that all the grease got out of the dish, which is very important because if the grease builds up in there, you surely would have a fire at home. Basically, I untie the string. There's flavor. All the herbs I put in there, nicely cooked in there, it's beautiful. Now what you do, you take off the leg. I usually tell people, you take a piece like this and cut it in half again. But for today, we're just going to take the breast. Oh, it's beautiful. How skinny the meat is. This is the, look at that here. This is the bone right here, and this is the size of the breast. Everything else was fat, henceforth our little schmaltz production. Then you can cut those into like strips, like about so. Perfect. Now I just put the goose in here. Back on the fire. The lardons I told you, reduce like those ones over here. You just cook them down a little bit more and done. The lardons I put right into the goose. Here we go. All right, now the goose is cooked in overdrive here. So I'm going to add a little bit of stock in there, which could be the stock that you make from the gizzards that come with the goose, or just take a little chicken stock. One or the other. It's really there's again no right or wrong. And the goose is basically done. All I got to do, I'm going to put another spite on the fire for my crab cake, and then voila, the goose is ragout. So basically what it is, as you can see, it's almost like a coq au vin, if you will, or anything else like it. It's all cooked together. So you have the sweetness of the turnips, you have the onion, you have the lardons in there, and actually we can plate it up. But before I plate it up, let's meet a revolutionary hero, Molly Pitcher.
Walter, down here you see a revolutionary lady, which I think is very important and very few people know. As you can see, she is the statue of a strong German woman.
Molly Pitcher.
That's correct.
Few revolutionary figures are cloaked in more controversy than Molly Pitcher. Molly Pitcher was the name believed to have been given all women during the Revolutionary War who helped to bring water to the troops in battle. Most historians do agree there was a Mary Ludwig born in 1753 on a New Jersey dairy farm to a family of German heritage. Mary is believed to have married William Hayes, a barber, when she was 13. When William joined the Pennsylvania Artillery as a gunner in the Revolutionary War, Mary went along with him, as many wives and children did, to help support the troops. It was during that famous Battle of Monmouth, the same one in which General von Steuben distinguished himself, that the legend of Molly Pitcher was born. Mary Ludwig, according to folklore, was helping to reload a cannon on the battlefield when an enemy cannonball shot right between her legs. Had Mary not been standing with her feet adequately apart in the heat of action, she surely would have been seriously wounded. But as the story has it, the cannonball only ripped part of her dress off and nothing else. She supposedly shrugged off the assault and kept right on fighting. After the war, Mary and William returned to Pennsylvania and settled in Carlisle, PA. Mary was one of only 5 women to receive a military pension after the Revolutionary War.
I want to make sure that I get my crab cakes in the fire. So the crab cakes, you remember? Here we go. Put them on the fire really quick. Okay. Crab cakes on the fire. Okay, I'm going to dress up the goose. And basically, all this is very simple. You basically just throw it all on a platter. Okay. Oh, I tell you, the flavor of that. 18th century is its finest. While I'm dressing the goose on the serving platter, I'm reminded how Thomas Jefferson raised geese for the feather for his riding quill. Let me check my crab cakes quick. They cook real nicely. Look how nice they hold up. Beautiful. And it's the salilan, the outside of that gives the coating that makes it so unique. All right, the potato dumplings, you remember a while ago? Okay, here they are. Hoppa. And we're going to get them to garnish the outside of the platter. And this is something would be just served like that in the 18th century, because remember, it would have been family style. So it would have been in the center of the table. I don't know if they would have put the dumplings like I'm doing it today, but I just feel in a little whimsical mood. So I think that's beautiful. But we're not done. There's more to come. Hold on. We have a skillet working over there that we're going to get right now. The crab cakes are done. And then I'm going to show you something. There we go. 1, 2, 3. You take schmaltz in a pan. You put breadcrumbs in there, like so. And now we're going to get on the fire really quick. Okay. The other thing is I want to make sure also, I'll show quick. Look at how nice those ones are. With one on each side. Beautiful. Completely ready to go. I'm going to dress it up quick with a little tartar sauce or Herb Remoulade, which is really a tartar sauce with extra herbs. But what really intrigued me with the dish today is that Hannah Glass, that wrote her book in 1747, has the same identical recipe that I have here. How unique is that? So it just goes on top like so. You can garnish it with a little bit of lemon. It's going to be really quick going. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Now what you do, you put the schmaltz in the pan, mix it up. The schmaltz cooks it. You put a little chopped parsley in there. And then what you do is you take one of each dumpling. This is a beautiful flavor. There we go. Bunch of chai flowers. And I have some chives already ready. And then we have the crab cakes over here. Parsley on the plate, very whimsical. Remember, the 18th century would have been served family style, in the middle of the table. How they present their food, we don't know exactly, but we know how it tasted. I hope you try those recipes at home. And remember, when cooking the goose, a lot of grease, be very careful. And this is a dish inspired by Hannah Glass, her book that she wrote in 1747 that we recreate all the time. Crab cakes from the day and crab cakes from yesteryear. What a great way to impress your guests next time. Thanks for joining us and sharing a taste of history.